Hey guys, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are a part of the counseling team here at Hill Country Bible Church. And recently at church, we've been having these conversations about how to walk with people who are in a lot of pain in their lives. And we just wanted to kind of throw some tools out there for us to kind of think about, because it's so hard to figure out how to walk with these people in a really helpful way. And the first one that we were thinking about was there's so much power in your presence. There's actually a neurological healing that happens in your brain when you are sitting with someone of compassion and showing you compassion, that it literally starts healing your brain as you do that. And there's a huge difference between talking with someone and talking at someone. Talking with someone is actually going to bring that healing that I'm talking about, because you're met with warmth and love and respect, because we're just being with someone, no agenda, just with them. Talking at someone has an agenda to it, because we're trying to fix it, we're trying to advice give, and it truly shuts down the connection ability of the relationship, and it puts a lot more distance there.
It makes me think about how helpful it is to understand that our role in walking with people who are in pain is not to make that pain go away, right? So often when we're in pain or when someone else is in pain, we very naturally have the tendency to want to run away from it. And actually trying to fix a problem is a way that we're trying to run away from it. It's sort of an attempt to get distance from the discomfort that we tend to experience. So our job is to meet people right where they're at. So we can't take away anybody's pain, right? But when we are with people, when we're listening and connected to them, then we can act as a sort of shelter from the storm that often life brings. A very practical skill that we can use whenever we're walking with others to help them feel heard and understood is a skill called reflective listening. So reflective listening is very simple and extremely powerful. And it's the ability to actually use the words that someone is using when they're talking and reflecting it or repeating it back to them out loud. Often, whenever we are listening to people, their words filter through our own brain, and we end up responding to what we think they said rather than to what they actually said. And so reflective listening helps sort of put our own perceptions and biases to the side, so that we can really, really help that person that we're talking with to feel heard and connected.
Yeah, I think being misunderstood is probably one of the most frustrating experiences that we have in the relationships, because we feel like they just kind of passed us by and they weren't tracking with us at all. And it puts that distance in the relationship, or at least I want to buck up against it and say, that's not what I said, right? We just want to be understood. So one way to get around that whole frustrating process is doing what Sarah's talking about, is that reflective listening, just to make sure we're understanding what someone's saying. And it also helps kind of keep us away from the temptation to want to fix it. The temptation to want to fix it is always going to be there, because it's a natural desire we have, because we are empathetic creatures and we do want to help other people. And she has a lot of wisdom to offer into my life. Don't get me wrong, she has a ton of wisdom to offer to me. But in those moments, we're not ready to hear that advice. We just want to make sure we're understanding one another.
And I think whenever someone feels heard and understood, then they can spend less energy in trying to get you to hear exactly what they mean or exactly what they say, and they can process their experience better. We're going to give you a quick example of what listening in our culture normally looks like, okay? So I'm a mom. Lindsay, I am feeling so lost. I've got 3 daughters, and they have so many needs, and sometimes I just feel like I don't know what I'm doing. It's overwhelming at times.
Well, you know what I've tried whenever I get overwhelmed as a mom too is I've asked my husband to come help me, and I've actually got a maid. It's been really, really helpful to not have to clean so much around the house. And I also found a parenting class here at Hill Country to be really, really helpful to find some emotional support and just some practical tools for how to approach those needs in a better way.
Okay, so let's debrief from that. My experience when you were responding to me was I felt dismissed emotionally. I didn't feel like you were really seeing just how much I was struggling and the pain that I was in. And you went to a solution and you were trying to fix it. And I actually started feeling a little bit judged, which I know wasn't your intention whatsoever. And you gave some super helpful suggestions, but they weren't things that I think I needed to hear in that moment.
Yeah, and I think on the listener side, as I was seeing my friends struggle, all that's in me is wanting to come out and fix it because I feel uncomfortable that she's struggling.
Right.
And I want to meet with her, but I'm kind of anxiously doing it and I'm not being effective. I'm not being a good friend at the moment, but I'm really trying hard to be.
So sometimes reflective listening can feel very counterintuitive to how we naturally want to respond. So let's practice reflective listening and see what that might look like. Lindsay, I am overwhelmed right now. I have 3 kids and they all have so many needs, and I feel overwhelmed most of the day and just lost as a mother. I don't know what to do.
So you're feeling overwhelmed and lost with all the needs of the kids right now?
It's just so hard, and so often I feel like I'm not a good enough mom.
So you're feeling like you're not good enough as a mom?
Yeah, I do. And I know that's not truthful, but that's the way I feel.
So can I say, as an observer, what I saw different in my friend? My first response and my second response was when I responded the first time with a fix it, I saw her actually be a little bit more defensive and kind of like her shoulders came a little bit forward.
Absolutely.
And then the second time, I actually saw her like sink in to the conversation and like our eyes met, but it was just this like, oh, I totally am with her. I get her. I feel as a listener more connected to my friend. And I'm curious, what was your experience the second time?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I felt it. It was like a breath of fresh air when I felt like you were just meeting me right there. I actually felt myself literally take a deep inhale and exhale, like I was calming down. I felt very connected to you and very validated as a person.
Yeah, and I will point out, it kind of feels silly. Like I kind of felt silly saying the same thing she was saying. And I was like, ooh, is she gonna be like, yes, you idiot?
But it didn't sound silly.
Okay, and that's the good validation from someone who experienced it is, it's not silly to just say those words back. It actually is quite healing, and it's so simple, but it's so powerful. So we've talked about the power of your presence. We've talked about reflective listening. We've kind of shown you what that looks like. And the last thing we're going to talk about is just the power in saying, how can I support you? And that's where our conversation was kind of going is, the question I wanted to ask is, how can I support you right now? Because the truth is, I don't know. I don't know what would be most helpful for her. I don't know what she's really needing or wanting because I'm not her. And so just asking the question invites her and I to, again, connect and engage together, and for me to listen about what she's really looking for and me not to just make assumptions.
So today we've talked about the power of your presence in people's lives. We've talked about reflective listening and also asking people how you can support them in the midst of their struggles. So we want to invite you to try that out this week. Experiment with it, play with it a little bit, and let us know how it goes for you. Give us some feedback.